everybody, and welcome once again to the UnLearnT podcast. I am your host, Ruth Abigail, aka RA, and
Hello, friends. It's Jaquita, your fave. How y'all
ah,
doing?
yes. And we are the podcast that is helping you gain the courage to change your mind so that you can experience more freedom. And this is your favorite, your favorite newest segment, Talks with Middle Adults. I think we're
Talks with
sticking with
middle
it.
adults, man.
I think we're
Talks
sticking
with
with it.
middle adults.
Talks with Middle Adults, where we basically talk about things we've had to unlearn from our 20s up until about right now, and just
Like
try to
yesterday.
shed a little light.
Just unlearned this thing yesterday. I got it fresh off the press for you.
Fresh off the press.
Fresh off. We got
Oh
some fresh off the press
no, I
lessons.
think we do actually, because we were just talking before we hit record, and I just think we should get right into it, because I think this particular conversation, I mean, it's very fresh. Like I was just saying about a conversation that I had yesterday, and around this, and you said it a couple of days ago. So, man, we want to talk about fears when it comes to new leaders, right? So,
My Lord.
I, so let me give you a statistic, right? So let me get there. Let me get there. All right. So more than 77% of organizations report that leadership is lacking. All right. And right.
Lacking is strong.
That's right. It's lacking, right?
That's strong.
And while that is a big number, it should not come as a surprise, because 10,000 baby boomers retire every day. All right. That's
Yeah.
crazy. At the same time, 83% of businesses say it's important to develop leaders at all levels, but less than 5% of companies have implemented leadership development at all levels.
Sounds
Okay.
about right. Sounds
So
about right.
it is. It's true,
Yeah.
right? Like we don't
Y'all need to be developed. We have no programs.
We don't develop.
Yeah.
We don't consciously, intentionally develop, I think, young leaders. Well, we
Mhm.
might do it through a more unconventional or informal means, but
Yeah.
you can't scale that. And we obviously have to scale it, because we have this huge leadership vacuum. And so what I've seen and what I've experienced is that when you are underdeveloped as a leader, your fears begin to drive how you lead, right?
Absolutely.
You lead out of fear.
Absolutely.
And so I think this is a very relevant conversation for young leaders, of which we have been and still are. I mean, we are young leaders, but we're experienced young leaders, but we're still young. And I think it's just this reality of like, yo, we got a lot of responsibility. I got a lot of responsibility for a 30 something year old, right?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
and it can be scary sometimes. And there are definitely ways that I have felt developed, and then there are ways I felt underdeveloped to do what I'm doing. And my fears have absolutely driven some of my leadership decisions, which have been very detrimental in some ways, which I'm happy to share some of that. So what about you? Where do you land there?
It's been really interesting in the role that I'm in now, stepping fully into middle management.
Yeah.
And as a middle adult, middle management should come easily. But middle management is
They
middle
say it's the
management
hardest one.
is,
It's the hardest
yeah. I
one.
mean, it is the fear of dropping someone's expectation. You have the expectations of the people that you lead and supervise, and
Mm,
the expectations of the people who are kind of overseeing your work as a middle manager. Okay. And it can be really paralyzing at
mm,
times, because you're so focused on, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right move? And that is like on a day-to-day basis. Did I say the right thing in that one-on-one conversation with one of my assistant directors? Did I say the right thing in that staff meeting? Am I leading my team in the right way that's going to be most effective and that's going to like make a big splash? Because where I work, we want to
mm,
be the best. Like we are always promoting like number one this, number one that, gotta be the best. Like, and it is a lot of pressure to perform, and leadership is not always performance.
No.
It's not always performance based. A lot of times leadership is development. Leadership is, taking step back and molding and shaping something in ways that other people may not see and or appreciate. But sometimes the quiet things we do in leadership are not as recognized as kind of some of the bigger, louder things that we do. And so
Hmm.
it's the fear of the public stuff for me.
Yeah.
I feel like I got a good handle on
Mm.
like what I do privately with my team, but it's what gets seen publicly that kind of stresses me out.
That's really, what's really interesting? I feel like I might be the opposite. I,
Really?
yeah, public, I think because at my core, I'm a performer. I'm very good
Mhm.
at doing that. Like I'm good at when I gotta be in front of a crowd, whatever that might be. Like I can put it on and I can do my thing behind. I've led teams in the last 4 years, right? I've
Yeah.
led teams where we have been impressive on the outside and crumbling on the inside. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that experience has shaped my the fears I have are really around like a lot of them are within the four walls of our space where we operate when nobody sees us, because we all are so, we wanted to look our best, be our best, do our best out there, and we did. I mean, we were really good. We are really good, right? We're great at what we do when it comes to being in the spotlight as an organization, and it can be really when you it's like, you step behind closed doors and you can feel the tension, and we've been there. And so, yeah, it's interesting
Mm-mm.
you said that. I think I never really thought about it that way until you said it. Like I feel like my fears lie there. Like I'm like, it scares me. It's almost like I'd rather be doing public stuff because I feel better.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I think we can dive into all of this a little bit more. So
I do too.
I'm excited about this
This
conversation.
is gonna be good. So
Yeah.
if you followed us for the last few episodes, we have said, and it is true, that we are good with lists. And
You gotta
so
know who you are, you know?
you gotta know who you are. You
You
gotta know
gotta know who you
what
are. As a
corner to
middle
turn.
adult, by this
You got
time, you should know who you are. You should know what works for you. Don't be over here trying to be out the box, trying to try
don't do
something new.
that.
You know who you are.
Don't do that.
And
Yep.
we, the middle adults, we're list people,
We're list
okay?
people.
We
Yeah,
are list
we're
people.
the BuzzFeed top 10 people. We're the BuzzFeed
Listen, we came
generation.
up in that generation,
We literally
okay?
did. Like we created it, so we're gonna use
Yeah.
it to our advantage. Um, so there is an article that has published this kind of top fears faced by new leaders, and when I read them, like three of the five are like I can feel are very, very have been very present. One of those three is probably present right now, and I've seen it. I've seen how it has prevented me from leading in the past, and somehow how it's done what it's done now. So, like this is to me is spot on.
Yeah.
So all right, so let's just go through them, and so Quita, this is the first one: fear of not being good enough, which I think is like,
Child.
so yeah. What do you feel about that?
So I'll kind of give a little anecdotal,
Hmm. Hmm.
relevant, hopefully relevant story. When I first started at the job that I'm at now, I was one of four of like the leadership team. It was four of us total. The other three leaders had been there like 7, 8, 9, 10 million years. And so, they were just really, really established in their roles, had a real established identity on the team. Like, everybody, all of the assistant directors and the graduate students that work with us, like they kind of knew who they were. And when I came in, I already came in kind of feeling like an underdog.
Mm,
and I was very different from everybody else on the leadership team. I was the only black woman on the team. I was the only black person on the leadership team. And so I immediately was just trying so hard to feel like I was finding my place and able to really articulate who I was to this team and kind of where my value add was. And I was constantly, the first year there, I was constantly battling with the thought of, do they really need me?
mm,
Like, because these people have been here for 10 years and they really know what they're doing. They have the institutional knowledge, they have the rapport with the team members already. Like, am I somebody that can show up and add something different?
mm,
And is what I'm adding really going to be seen as something that is valuable for the people that I'm working with? And it took me a while. It took not them recognizing, oh yeah, Jaquita's great, because they already thought that. Really, these were my internal fears. Like, when they hired me, they had no fear at
got
all
it.
that I wouldn't be able to come in and to add value to the team. But I came with that fear. And I was working against my own fear, like
Mm,
kind of carrying it on my back. Like, gotta prove I'm good enough, gotta prove I'm valuable, gotta prove that my insights are worthy enough. And it wasn't until I put the fear down that I was able to kind of really step into who I was and really become like the pillar of the organization that I needed to be to uphold my end.
mm,
And I think that leaderships, I always teach, in the way that my office is set up, we have an executive director and we have three directors underneath that executive director. And then we have like a bunch of assistant directors. And I always teach my team that the executive director is our covering. And each of us as directors, we serve as a pillar that upholds the organization. And so each of the pillars brings something different. I had to be okay with being different.
mm,
And I had to be okay with
mm,
really exerting that difference and standing in that. And even though my strengths were very different than other strengths on the team, I had to be okay with saying, yeah, but my strengths are still holding us up. Now, if I ever let my side down, if I'm not giving what I'm supposed to be giving, and my side falls down, then that's on me. But if I am giving the best of who I am, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But that fear does creep in like every once in a while, especially when the organization starts to go through changes. It's like, here we go all over again. Am I
yeah.
good enough for this now? Because this is a completely different organization. And so, but that's definitely something that I feel like I've
Mm,
had to fight through and continue to consider. I'm always considering that.
yeah. So I I'm a co-founder of the organization that I
And
lead,
she is.
but I am the second executive director. So I I had followed I followed the founder, right? Um
Mm-hmm.
and even though we were partners, she was the founder and she was leading it, and I didn't come on staff until later. And I definitely a big reason that I did not want to take the role is because I didn't think I could do things the way she did them.
Mm-hmm.
There were just certain there were just certain things that I just knew, like, I don't have that. Like, that's not me. And yet it's needed. Like, I know this has to happen in order
Mm-hmm.
for the organization to be successful, but I'm not that person. Like, and I don't know where that's going to come from, right?
Yeah.
One of the things was like fundraising. um I was like, yo, I don't think I could do this. Like, not like, but to your point, not like she did it,
Yeah.
right? So I had to find the difference. I had to find where my strengths were and lean on those, and not, I think the comparison factor is a big, it's a big thing here. Like, we part of why you don't we don't feel good enough is because we're looking at something else and comparing ourselves to it, as opposed to really leaning into who we are, who we believe we are, who we're naturally and uniquely created to be. And so
Mm-hmm.
it took me a minute to figure that out. I don't think I lived there today, but I certainly, um, when I first got into the role, I was pretty terrified, and I really didn't want any kind of responsibility around it at all. And then the other thing that I was really concerned about, honestly, was like she was just a lot of fun to be around.
Ruth Abigail, you're fun.
But here's the thing, Quita, I'm
You're
not. And,
tons
and
of
and here's the
fun.
thing, I'm not. I'm not. Now I can have fun all
I
day.
love it when Ruth Abigail puts on her let's have fun face.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Come on,
I can I
guys.
can I can I can have fun, but I can't bring it, right? I don't bring fun. I have fun. So
Mm,
I don't think I do. But maybe I don't believe I
I
do.
think you're hard on yourself, but we'll talk about
Maybe,
that.
but
We'll have
we
therapy
we'll
later.
talk about that later. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I just whether it's true or not, I don't feel like I do. And so I felt like, man, like she's really good at having stuff in her house, and like she's really good at um throwing celebrations for different people. She's really good at um you know the birthday parties, and like, yeah, stuff like that, and incentives for the staff, and whenever we do something, it's always something, it's like we're gonna have fun, and it's like my deal is like we're gonna do it, like I don't we're just gonna do it, and if it's fun, great, but if it's not, we still
It's
did it, and
called
that's
the
what I think.
razzle dazzle. That's all you need. It's a
Yeah,
little razzle dazzle.
I don't do razzle dazzle. It's not who I am. Now I can try to put a little sprinkle on there,
That sprinkle
sometimes.
didn't even look. Who
That's as
said,
much what
look,
I got.
I can
But
put a little
I
sprinkle.
was really worried about that, because that was the culture of the organization, and I was like, I don't think I
Hmm.
can maintain that. Um, and I had to, and I haven't. Let me be clear. Like that's just not who I am. But there are other ways that I have found to the other ways I've found to, I guess, engage people and engage
Hmm.
the team that have fun elements in it, right? It may not be a party, but it's witty banter that, that's
And
that's
you're
that,
great at that, huh?
that's about the best I
You're
can do.
great at that.
I try. I do try. But yeah, I think that like feeling like the following anybody, like following in the footsteps, which most of you as young leaders will do. You will have to be in somebody else's shoes. You're going to have to replace them, because they're no longer there, and you're replacing them. And so it's like, yeah, what if I can't? What if I don't do it? What if I can't do it? What if I'm not good enough? And I think the other thing, one of the ways I think to dispel this fear is to go ahead and tell the truth, and say, no, I'm not good enough yet. Yet. Because
I,
you're not. Because you're new. And it's like you don't even know what good looks like yet.
can I just say something? Do not go on a job interview saying that.
I didn't
Do
say
not
that.
go on a job
I didn't say
interview
I didn't
and
say
they'll be
go to
like,
job.
why are you the person for the job? Actually, I'm not, but
No.
I can be. You think that's going to work in your head, but
I
do not, do not go on that job interview saying, I'm not good enough yet.
let
But
it
if you
be
give
known.
me a chance,
Let it
if
be
you give
known.
me a chance,
Let it be known. I didn't say that. That ain't what I
I'm
said.
just I'm just clearing it up for whoever's
Yeah, yeah,
listening
yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah.
was
Don't
actually going to make a point that was slightly different if you would allow me to jump in. Thank you. I
jump.
felt I felt the release. I would say one of the things that really broke me out of the mindset of feeling like I wasn't good enough was when staff turnover started to happen in my office and I
Mm,
became responsible for hiring. And when it was my responsibility to refill these roles, and I was thinking about, okay, well, who do I want to put in the spot? I wasn't thinking, oh, I need to replace the person. I was thinking I need to bring in someone who can carry the vision forward. And so when I look at a role, I no longer look at it as, oh my gosh, like they got to come in and perform at the level of whoever. I look at it as who is going to get me to the next level of vision for my organization. Who if I put them in the spot can take it further than where it is right now. And I'm really intentional about that. And I've had to do a lot of hiring. Not
yeah,
because where I work at in the bomb.com, but just because they're starter roles, right? They're right out of grad school
yeah,
roles. And so they're going to come, they're going to stay 2, 3 years, and then they're going to go somewhere and be great. after they've been fantastic for me, of course, because I give glowing recommendation letters and they know that. Shout out to my staff. Love y'all. Don't leave. But 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 it's really I have had when I've seen a new person get into a space and do something that nobody in that role has ever done before or have taken it, part of what I do for my job is programming. We do late night programming. And my current assistant director of late night programs, shout out Amir Moore, right? He is absolutely fantastic and has taken late night programming to levels that nobody else, I don't think anybody else could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
But he came in on the interview with ideas. He
Mm-hmm.
came in on the interview saying, this is who I am. I'm the man because I'm going to sit down and get it done. And there's not going to be any question of my ability to really come in and flip this on top of his head. And did he come in and, we worked through some things, right? Just as a team, but he has absolutely way surpassed my expectations for that role and has become like a real staple campus and community partner within that role. And
Yeah.
so, I'm when I started hiring superstars, that's when I started believing that I was a superstar. Because
Interesting.
if I'm able to envision the role and the position and get the right person in it so that they can take it to the next level, then I no longer feel the pressure to live up to the expectations of whoever was in my role before me or whoever else is in the center. I'm holding up my pillar because looking at them succeed lets me know that, okay, their success is my success. When they win, me bragging about them is me saying, yeah, that's my team. Yeah, those are the people under my pillar. Those are the people that I'm upholding. Those are the people and so it took away the pressure when I allowed them to be great and to go past what was in that role before. It took away the pressure from me to feel like I had to become someone else in order to get them there. Because the more I was myself and the more I poured myself into them, the more that they excel and vice versa. And so that really kind of took away the sting for me of, am I good enough? It was, well, if they're good enough, my only job is to make sure that I'm good enough for them and not trying to be good enough for anybody else's imaginary expectations.
Man, I I feel like this is so interesting. I'm this is so interesting because I'm sitting here and it's like I definitely didn't feel that way. I
Mm.
feel like when I hired superstars, for me, it it more so shed a light on how inept I was. I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know how to lead these people. And it just I was so inexperienced at the time.
Mm.
There were just things that I just didn't know. But I knew I was like, I know like they're gonna kill it. And they did. And I think that goes back to like we killed it, right? We were programmatically and public we were great. But my inexperience and my fear, I think of I let fear drive me in a lot of ways. And some of these other fears are I'll talk more about those things, but like my fears definitely moved me in a direction that was not helpful as a leader.
Mm.
And when you hire people who are very good at what they do, that doesn't work if you don't have the confidence you need and you don't have the competence you need as
Mhm.
a leader. um that they won't there's certain things that people just aren't going to stand for, right? They're not going to
Yeah.
take. Some people are patient enough to wait it out, and some people are not, and I get that. And so I think that's just interesting. Like I definitely felt there were just days I felt very small, and I
Mm.
didn't know how to. My confidence was so low at that
Mm.
in those moments that the fact that I had people who had higher confidence levels in what they were doing than I did, I won't even say competent, but confidence. They had more
Mhm.
confidence than I did. It made me shrink back, which as a leader doesn't work because people are looking to you for direction, and I couldn't give it to them because I didn't have the confidence needed. And so that was a real struggle. That was a real struggle for me. And now I don't feel that now, but part of it, part of it is, and I'm gonna go to the next one because I think, and it says it actually is connected, like this fear of
Mhm.
failure, right?
Yeah,
But I will say this, and I think that's a very common one. That should come as no surprise as the
for
top
sure.
fears. But if I had not failed in that, I wouldn't be here where I am now,
What you
right?
said.
Like
Yeah.
I needed that experience of low confidence as a leader, of not feeling like I was able to do certain things. I needed that. I needed to fail. I needed to feel that so that I would so they would motivate me, right, to move forward and not sit in that, and not sit in this low confidence level. I needed that, and I'm grateful for it now. At the time it was, I mean, it was hell. It was
Mhm.
horrible. I didn't know how to, I didn't see my way out of it. um but when I came out, I looked back and I said, man, I there are some lessons I've learned that I'll never repeat. Like, I'll never repeat it.
Yeah.
And case in point, yesterday there was a situation. One of my issues is handling things quickly. I don't the idea. I like to be prepared for confrontation. So sometimes, because I don't, I'm a the fear of just being unprepared for what's coming. I want to think through it. I want to wait. I want to wait till I'm ready. Well, you can't wait till you're ready when people are frustrated. They're frustrated now. So as a leader, my job is to serve them, not me. And in that moment, in years prior, I have served myself, and it's brought detriment to the team.
Mhm.
Just recently, I said I ain't doing that again. I don't feel I don't have all the clarity I want. I don't have all my questions answered. I'm not really prepared to handle the frustrations of my team right now, but I understand that they're frustrated. I need to handle it now. And so, because I've seen what not doing that, like I have failed in that area before, and I need to handle it now. And so, even though the fear of failure is very real, I think it's also in a lot of ways very necessary.
Yeah. I think that something that might be important to kind of point out for our leaders is that Ruth Abigail is not in middle management.
Yep,
Okay. Ruth Abigail is top of the food chain. All right. Ruth Abigail
that's
is the
hilarious.
head honcho.
That is really funny.
Okay. She the one in charge.
That's funny.
Right. I am middle management.
That's funny. That's funny.
you know,
That's
and
funny.
middle
That is a
management
different
over
dynamic.
here.
Yeah.
And because as you were talking, I was thinking about how I think one of the things that has really benefited me as a leader on my team is that I have sometimes I can create and like so I tell people my name actually means fortress. Look it up. Quetta. It's a city in Pakistan. It means fortress. Um,
Yeah.
but and I tell people like when it's time, when we if there is any threat at all, we're hunkering down. I got y'all. Like, and so I think that what I have created on my team is just a high level of trust
Yeah.
and a high level of like we're not going to allow outside things to defeat us. Like we're going to be protected in our bubble. Also, you have a team that is focused on one common goal and everybody
Mhm.
is kind of working towards the same goal. My team, while we have common like objectives, everybody's doing their own thing, and we
Good.
come together for the sake of involvement as a whole, but they all have different responsibilities within that and they collaborate, but they're not all working together on one thing all the time. And so I think that, with a shared goal, I think that you have a lot more interaction within your team and like
Yeah,
they're
yeah, yeah,
all kind of working together
for
a
sure.
little bit more. Whereas my team, we work together, but we're also like we got our own little projects.
Yeah.
And so it's different atmospheres and there's different challenges in there. But I will say that the fear of failure is super real, because there are expectations for my department. I am responsible for turning in our assessment data at the end of every quarter. And there are like expectations. How many students came to these programs? What was their level of
Yeah.
satisfaction with your programs? How many programs did you host? How many community partners did you utilize in that? How many campus partners did you utilize in your programming? How effective are you at what you're doing? And so every quarter we're like turning in data saying, yes, we're doing a good job. Yes, we're doing a good job. And
Yeah.
so, like, a lot of pressure comes out of the numbers.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
a lot of times, we kind of had the pandemic as an excuse for a little while.
Yeah.
The pandemic came in and we were like, oh, well, the pandemic, those numbers don't number because, gosh darn it, COVID, and we're still rebounding,
Right. Right.
and I think, as a researcher, I can still look and say, oh, there's still so many impacts from COVID. But after a while, they don't nobody cares,
Yeah.
like nobody. They're like, we're not wearing masks anymore. We don't care nothing about none of that other stuff. Get these people to these programs, because
Right.
you have to prove that the budget that you have, that the resources you've been allocated, that like you're making good use of that. Like you have to be able to show like you gave us $20,000 to do X, Y, and Z,
Right.
and here's the result of it.
I
And
got you.
so there was just when I moved from my former job, which was at a kind of mid-sized technical college, to my current job, which is like a kind of much larger 4-year public institution, right? That goes hard in the paint for culture, for student experience, for all of that. I went from doing stuff on a very small scale, on a very small budget, to doing stuff that's like very, very public facing, that's very, very like, like the stuff we do impacts tens of thousands of people, like in one event sometimes. And so the fear of failure, for
Yeah.
me, it was the public failure,
Yeah.
which I think is why, like, I'm less worried about what we're doing privately, because I feel like I always feel like, okay, I can manage, I can rearrange, I can get everybody back on pace privately. But publicly,
Mm.
if something happens, it's like all the big dogs again. I'm not on the
Right.
top. So
Right.
it's the people who have the outside expectations that sometimes I'm not always aware of. Those are the ones that I'm like afraid of them saying, well, Jaquita, you dropped this ball, and this ball, and it's your fault.
Yeah.
Because as good as my team is, if something happens, I'm taking that off their back.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like if something goes wrong at an event, like I'm stepping in front of them and I'm catching that. I'm not catching no bullets in real life. I just want to be clear.
Yellow
But I'm not
submarine.
gonna let them fall without me.
Yeah.
Cause again, Fortress, I don't, I'm here for you. Like I'm supporting you whether we win or whether we lose, whether we're up or whether we're down. And so for me, that fear of public failure, because when I was at kind of the technical school and I was, operating at a high capacity, everything I did, everybody loved. I could have said, guys, we're
Yeah.
just gonna build, we're gonna take a deck of cards and build a house. They'd have been
Yeah.
like, oh my God, Jaquita, you are girl, she's killing it.
Mm.
Right. But when I come to this bigger institution, they're like, all right, we're used to doing big scale stuff. And so I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to perform at this level. And really grateful because I had great supervisors. It is not a testament of my leadership alone. Like it is a testament that I had great leadership
Yeah.
that was supportive and that was instructive and that was a developing leadership. And there's different types of leadership. And I think it's important for every young leader to spend some time. You can go to Google or you can look up some leadership theory, look up some leadership books, and really identify what type of leader you are. Are you a transactional leader where, like, what I give, I expect to receive in return? Like I'm giving something, expecting something back. I'm a transformational leader. Like I've identified that as my leadership style. I am always focused on how can I bring out the most potential out of the people and out of the subject matter that I'm leading, out of the programs that I'm leading? How do I get that person to their highest potential so that they can also have transformative effect? Are
Right.
you a servant leader, right? There's different types of leadership styles, and you will feel less like you're about to fail if you know who you are. And I can't preach self awareness enough. Spend some time getting to know your leadership style, because it will ultimately help you, and to make you feel less like you're failing if you know what pillar you're called to uphold in an
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah. That's I think that's really good. And yeah, I think that's good. I I think that that idea of knowing the pillar, knowing like there's so much power in knowing what you just said, right? About like, you know, how well can you identify your strengths and the way you would come at leadership. And some of those are going to come with certain levels of fears that we're talking about. And then you kind of know, you kind of have this, okay, I know what. So as a transformational leader, I think I would probably put myself in that category as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's a desire to have a measurable impact of change.
Yes.
And so you want to see change where I think that can, for me, where that can go off the rails is sometimes I want change so much, especially in people, that I can miss the way lack of change impacts the organization. So
Mm.
that's me. Now I don't, you know, I don't know if that's kind of what you were saying, but when I was hearing, it's like I want to see. I was just telling some of my team the other day, like I never thought, it wasn't something I had a vision for myself for when I was in my early 20s doing the work that, you know, working with young people and doing all that. I didn't necessarily see myself where I am now. Like I didn't see myself leading a team of young black women that are doing the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love doing that. Like I love being able to pour into younger black female leaders that are pouring into young black girls. And for me, it's like it's incredible. And I want to
Yeah.
see them. I want to give them what other people gave me, right?
Mm-hmm.
An opportunity to thrive and to grow and to go and do amazing things that maybe you didn't think you could do.
For
That
sure.
is that is top three priorities for me as a leader. And as an organizational leader, as somebody who is at the top, and I do have the responsibility of the organization, of upholding the organization, right, and being the chief executive, if you will, of the organization. I also have to hold that, and sometimes those two, if we're not careful, like it can conflict, and so that fear, um, can sometimes fear can of not being able to that fear of not being transformational. It's like, I want to
Mm-hmm.
do this. Like, this is what is
Yeah.
important to me. And also, I have to pay attention to this too.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, it's going to counteract each other. I mean, they're just going to cancel each other out. Um, so it can be, it's a balance, and you have to know when to focus on what. And then for me, there's also fear of like failing in either one of those areas, right? Failing in the
Yeah.
organizational area and failing in the people area.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and so I consistently kind of play those two out in my mind. And I think it kind of goes to another one. I'm going to number four because I feel like this is a segue into that. This fear of holding people accountable. That 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 is my current issue. That is my current issue as a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, and I will also say, like, you know, certainly younger me, there was no holding people accountable. I don't even know what that, I don't, how, like, how do I, and I know that might sound crazy for some people because some people have no issue holding people accountable. Um, and also, I understand that you have to hold people gently. like and quite frankly, especially in our climate today, just in the work climate today, you
Don't get
can't
caught up.
just you can't just you can't just go off on folks. You can't just, you have to hold people gently, um for a lot of different reasons. And so holding people accountable and yet being holding folks gently and with care can be a challenge for me. It's, it can be a challenge. I lean towards care over accountability, mostly because I
Ooh.
don't want to. And let me also say this, because it seemed like I just made that that's that's actually not, two things can be true at the same time. I can care for someone and hold them accountable, but I think my issue is I don't know that I fully believe that all the time. So I don't want I don't want to sacrifice the way somebody thinks that I feel about them for the accountability piece. That is a very selfish thing for me, because I'm thinking about my feelings more than
Hmm.
their growth. And
Yeah.
so I noticed that as a leader, that's a struggle. And I would, to all of you younger leaders who might have young leaders as your leaders, I would urge you to give them time to figure that out. That is, if you can, right? Like, and I've asked my team that, like, y'all, I need time. I don't I there's some things I don't do well, and I see that this is something I can't promise it's going to turn around overnight, but if you give me a little time, I will promise to work on it. And
Hmm.
and so I think that, as as a leader in this stage, and at this like stage in my life, season of my life, age I am, like the maturity level I have, I I haven't lived, like, I don't have the level of confident. I think in 10 years holding people accountable won't be as difficult as it might be today,
Hmm.
because I would have been practicing it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not very easy to do it, and especially when I do want to be liked. I want people to like being working with me. I already said I'm not fun, so there has to be something about me that's appealing, and so it's like, maybe I could be kind and caring, and I don't want to cancel that out because I have to say something difficult to you because you're not doing what you're supposed to do.
Hmm.
That is a true issue, and for me, and like, that's real. And I think, yeah, I'm gonna stop there because I feel like I feel like I'm being too vulnerable, but it's okay. I'm gonna do it. This is what it is.
Oh man, I think it's there's so much there. But I think, when I think about like that fear of holding people accountable, like I think we were talking before we started taping about, like, I think my biggest fear as a leader is being a part of someone's trauma story.
Yeah,
Like, and
yeah,
someone,
yeah,
like
yeah,
when they get to their next level,
yeah.
that they're one day
Oh
sitting on a
man,
podcast saying, I was actually mishandled,
right.
like I was not, I wasn't fully developed. I wasn't fully, given what I needed by this one leader, because I look at past leaders and I say, man, I wish they had done that. I wish they had been
Mm,
this for me. I wish they had come through for me like that. And so I think that, like, sometimes in my leadership style, I'm kind of leading out of a deficit where accountability is not at the top of the list. It is, I want you, like, am I supportive enough? Like, do I give you enough
mm-hmm.
wise counsel? Like, and so, like, sometimes we start thinking through all of the things that we felt we didn't get. And we start trying to lead out of those deficits.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got to the school I'm at now, and my supervisor was like, all right, we're going to schedule our weekly one on one. And I was like, what is a one on one? I had never had a one on one
That's
meeting
so
with the
interesting.
supervisor, like, not a scheduled weekly,
Yes.
every day
I
at
remember when
this
you told me that.
time
I was
we
like,
meet.
that's crazy.
I had never, in my previous role, not a one. I would just kind of sneak into the office one day and be like, hey guys, y'all all right? Because I'm all right. I might need some things. I didn't know if nobody cared. I don't know if anybody's watching me, But when we scheduled those weekly one-on-ones, and I was like, wow. And like
Mm,
he would literally set everything to the side and just focus in on me for an
mm,
hour. And like it was, what do you need? What are you thinking through right now? What do you want to do? How can I help you get there? And immediately that was the culture I started for my team.
yeah.
I was like, team, we're gonna do weekly one-on-ones. I thought that, I thought this was the most novel idea ever, and not realizing, oh, this is what the rest of the world does. They
Wait, you
have
did weekly? You were doing it
we
weekly?
do, and we still do weekly. Every week I have one-on-ones with each one of my team members, and one-on-ones, and I have one-on-ones with my supervisor as well every week. But
That's
we're,
good.
our work is really fast paced. You
Yeah,
really
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of need to stay on top of what's going on. But I just think about how there's so much opportunity in that one-on-one conversation. Like I'm always like, okay, if I don't ask them about like how they're doing, they're gonna be like, she doesn't care about me. If I
Mm-hmm.
don't ask them, and so when it comes to like holding someone accountable, I did come up on a situation where I literally had to like really hold someone to the fire. Like, and I never thought I'd be in that situation. But it came pretty quick. It was,
Yeah.
hey, and it wasn't a very emotional time because I felt personally targeted, and so like how do you be a good leader when you feel like someone is like putting your reputation on the line?
Yeah.
Like, like they're going around saying whatever, whatever. And like you feel like how do I be a good leader and not be defensive? And like, and so I had to, the only thing that helped was I had to center that person's experience as the priority and not my own.
Mm. Yeah.
Like I had to take myself
Yeah.
in a corner
Yeah.
and be like, Jaquita, you are a great leader. You are supportive. You are this, and that, but my philosophy was I hired this person. I'm going to stand beside them till I can't stand beside them no more
Yeah.
because their development is part of my job.
Yeah.
Because I decided to hire them, then I'm going to take responsibility for getting them what they need so that they learn how to better orient themselves in this role. And it took a
Yeah.
lot of accountability. And I'm not a structured person. I hated documented stuff.
Yeah.
I hated being like, okay, well, on this day, he said this, and then I said this. Here's a typed up email of
Yeah.
everything we discussed.
Yeah.
Like, I hated being that person that had to like have my ducks in a row and had to like be ready to like serve up accountability basically. And
Yeah.
and it kept me on my toes because I was always like, because I was also trying to catch stuff before other people caught it, because there's nothing worse than another leader coming to you talking
Mm.
to you about your people. I
You ain't
told
lying.
y'all I don't play that.
You ain't lying.
Like, nah, I got him, I got them, I got all of them. All of them that's on my roster, I got them. Like, you ain't got to come telling me nothing about them. But it took a lot of intentionality, and I remember going through, it was about a week of emotional like, I can't believe that what's
Mm-hmm.
happening is happening. But I was really intentional, and I had, again, middle management ain't so bad now that I think about it. I had a really great boss.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I had a
that's
really
good.
good supervisor. I had a really great leader who uh who walked me through that. And at the same time, the parts of me that I couldn't cover because I was prioritizing this other person's experience, my supervisor prioritized my experience. Like he took it upon himself to say, "Hey, Jaquita, I hired you,
Yeah.
and I got you. Like, I know you're doing a great job. I know you're doing what you're doing, and you're navigating this beautifully. And because I was upheld, it was easier for me to uphold somebody else.
Yeah.
But accountability was a real struggle. And sometimes we don't always have, great supervisors, or we don't always have great leadership. And sometimes we are the leader, Ruth Abigail. Like, we are the one that, and so
It's
I'm wondering, like, what is your middle management like? Do you feel like you have like people who are in between you and the rest of your team? or is it everybody reports up to you?
That is so weird that you just said that, because that is so weird you just asked me that question, because I was literally just saying to myself, I don't have any middle management. That's so crazy. I don't. Our team is small. There are days where I think it would be nice, but then there are days it's like you don't really need it, right? Um, I will say that to your point, the upside to it is that you do have, and I wonder. I mean, I don't know. They I don't know. They might actually prefer that, because I love what you're saying about, as far as you in your role cover your team, and you're able to do that. There is there is a I cover I cover them, but I'm also the one that somebody else could cover them from. If that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, like
Yeah.
the role, right? So the role that I have, if there was a middle manager, there's a lot of things that probably would be covered by that person, that I wouldn't even they wouldn't even come to me, because it doesn't need to be, because they're taking care of it, and
Yeah.
the team feels more supported, right? Um, so that is not the case right now. We've had that in the past when our team was a little bigger. We had, we were bigger before COVID, and so I think that was a very very helpful thing, because your team is going to tell you things that they're not going to say to whoever's above you. They're just not.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
for sure.
and they're going to tell you those things, and you're going to handle them and all this stuff, but the person who signs the checks gets the least information. And so in my particular role, that's where I am right now, and there's really no buffer. I will say I would prefer it, not for me but for the team, cuz they need to have that kind of outlet. And there are ways that we kind of, right now, because we've got some great folks that we work with, that I work with, that aren't directly on the team, but are close enough to the team to help with some of that stuff. But it's when it's not on a regular basis. Um, but I think that's a really good point. Like, it is that accountability factor. We joke a lot. Like, when they're like, I'm gonna call HR, and I'll say,
Mhm.
hello, how you doing? It's Reticia. And it's funny, but it's the truth. Like, we're just not at that. We're not at that stage,
Mhm.
and I actually see the benefit, right, more so in those areas, when you have to hold people accountable. um there's a when people when the accountability is coming straight from the top with no buffer, there also can feel like there's a lack of protection. Like, that protective
Mm.
layer, I think, is important. And
Mhm.
because there are certain things that, again, like I was saying earlier, that I have to consider, other than just the people. Like, I have to consider both the organization and the people. And that's a
Mhm.
very difficult place to be in, when certain things arise. Like,
Yeah.
you have to really think through how to manage that sometimes. So that
Mhm.
accountability factor, sometimes, at my worst, you hold people accountable, or you get on people because you feel pressure. And it's like, hey, we got to get this done. This is late. We're not doing it right. Because in the back of my head, I'm thinking, we got to perform for these people, and I need them to write me a check, right? And so it's like, if we don't get this together, we're losing money. I need you to get it together. And then vice versa. Somebody, I wouldn't need to put that in their brains if there was somebody to, like, I could just say, hey,
Mhm.
I need you to do this. I need them to blah, 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 blah. This needs to be done. Um, it puts a protective layer on the, in my opinion, the most important people that are part of your organization are the ones that are doing the execution. So you
Yeah,
don't want to, you know, it is important to hold them accountable, and it's important that they feel protected.
for
And
sure.
anyway, I
And
think
it's hard
that's
to be both.
it can be hard to be
Yeah.
both. It can be hard to be both. And I definitely teeter that. I know I do. And I try, and like I said earlier, I lean towards less accountability, because I don't want anyone that I work with to feel like they're not protected, they're not cared for. Like I can't stomach that. That's not the person I am. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have to and I also realize, like you said it earlier, it's also my job to ensure that you are better. And sometimes being better means we got to have some tough conversations. I got to challenge you. I got to push you in ways that maybe you're uncomfortable with. I got to tell you when you're wrong. I got to tell you when you need to step it up. You know, I think the other thing about accountability that plays for me with the fear is sometimes I don't necessarily feel like I have the right to hold people accountable when I have not properly prepared for the expectation and properly
Mm-hmm.
communicated the expectation. In the organization I'm in, we've been around for 10 years, but COVID kind of restarted us up as a
COVID,
COVID.
coronavirus.
It restarted us up as a startup. You know what I'm saying? It feels like
Mm-hmm.
we started over in a sense,
Yeah.
and so 10 years already is not a long time to be around as an organization. But then, we're in 4 years past COVID. So we're kind of in this new phase. So it feels like a startup. And when that's the case, some of those structures and expectations have to they're either really weren't in place before, or you have to redo them, right? Because you're working from a different space. And I have found that there are lots of moments where I realize part of why I don't hold people accountable is because I never clarified the expectation. So
Mm-hmm.
I again, like I don't want to be guilty of allowing my frustration to hit people when they didn't even know that's what we needed to do. That's that's not on them. So there's a level of fear that comes from not being prepared to hold people accountable. And it's like, no, they didn't do that, but did I give them enough time? Like, did they know? Was it, so it's little stuff like that. I just think that's such an important that is an important factor to accountability. You have got to be clear on communicate it, um, and the expectations, your expectations, and what the consequences are
Mm-hmm.
for not meeting them. And if you don't do that, yeah, like I'm gonna feel a little weird getting on to you, even though maybe I should, but I'm gonna feel a little weird about it, and I don't really know what to do with that sometimes. So that's a real thing.
Yeah, I think also like and it's probably clear now that like we're working in two very different like leadership structures. Like, we have
Very.
HR,
Yeah.
we have,
Yeah.
a financial office, we have like there are just a lot of things I'm not deciding. So like if there's an area that they got a question in, I'll be like, yeah, baby, you got to call HR for that. Oh no, you got to call the business office for that. That's not me. My job is to make sure you do a great job at your job,
Yeah.
like, and so like I don't have to get caught up just because it's two very different organizational structures.
Yeah.
And so I think that like for those young leaders who are, may find themselves at a bigger corporation, like when you're thinking about what it looks like for you to be a leader, sometimes in order for you to have the answers, you have to know where the answers are. Like you have to be more familiar with your organization. And you got to know the rules in order to hold somebody accountable. Like, there's a lot of rules that I didn't make that I have to
Mhm.
be aware of in order to hold somebody else accountable. Whereas I feel like Ruth Abigail is like, oh yeah, we need to make a rule about that and then I
Correct.
can hold somebody accountable.
Correct.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that was going to be an issue. Okay, let me set a guideline and then set an expectation. But I do agree with you, like sometimes stuff is really frustrating, and when I was in that season of having to hold somebody accountable, that was where I started. I
Mhm.
literally sat
Yep.
down. I went to work on my day off, y'all. I was not playing. I was literally off that day and drove up to that school and put a
Ooh.
one-on-one meeting on the calendar. I was not playing. Okay. And I live an hour away from where I work, just to give further clarification. Um, but that was what I spent that meeting doing. I was like, hey, so
Yeah.
it seems that maybe there were some things that weren't fully communicated. I'm going to take responsibility for that. First time I'm taking accountability.
Yeah. For
Like,
sure.
all right, listen, I some things weren't clearly communicated. Maybe I missed a step. Maybe I did something. Maybe you ain't here. You know how your mama be. Maybe you ain't hear what I said. So my mama never questioned whether I heard it. If she said it, then
You
I'm now
heard it.
responsible
That's
for it.
correct.
There's no maybe you didn't understand. But I took a moment because I needed to restart a journey.
Yeah.
And so I think the best way to restart a journey as a leader is to first take accountability as a leader
100%.
and then say, okay, in order for us to restart this, I'm going to take the weight of everything that happened before. I'm taking that. So that's no longer a part of the equation. I'm taking that. I'm taking the blame. I'm taking whatever happened, I'm putting on my shoulder. So we as a unit are not carrying that anymore. I got that. Right. And so now that I've taken accountability for what is past, I would now like to set the guidelines for how we will both take accountability for what will continue. Because what happened back here cannot continue. So because I took responsibility for that. So that should no longer be an issue.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about how you can show up differently and how I can show up as support
Hmm.
as you develop and grow. I always tell people, and I mean this from the fiber of my being, like character is not something that's good or bad, it's developed. And I'm pretty sure I've said that on the episode before. So if there is something that I feel the need to hold you accountable for, especially if it is a character issue, right?
Yeah.
Then that is something that as a leader, I'm willing to say, okay, what is the development track that I'm going to put you on in order to develop this character trait, right? If you have a habit of, you know, not doing what you said that you were going to do, how
Yeah.
can I create a 3-step program,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
to
good.
help develop that trait in you? I'm not going to blame you for not having it because, especially as a middle adult that works with young leaders, I it's when I bought you on, I knew what I was signing up for. When I said that I was going to lead, 23 to 28-year-olds, I knew that I was signing up to be a mentor, to be a coach, to be an advisor, to being a developer. Right? Like, and that's what I love to do. Like, that's a big part of who I am. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes to create whatever it takes, to help you get to where you need to get to. But again, I just don't want to be the way that I communicate that sometimes can be stressful.
Yeah.
I remember when I was I had a situation that was going to get to a point where I was going to have to, submit a final notice. Like this is it. Like, we've come to the end of the line. And I remember I was really afraid to do it. But
Hmm.
I knew that it had to be me. And a lot of times giving out accountability requires us to be accountable,
For sure.
uh, which is hard to do. But again, I don't want to be a part of anyone's trauma story.
Yeah.
I want someone when they talk about me being like, like you want them, I always picture them like at an award show being like, and this one's for you, Jaquita. you know, Thank you for everything you've done.
That's hilarious.
Like you want to be a part. You don't assume that people are always going to be with you.
No.
Like I don't assume that, I look at the young adults who work for me now, the young leaders who work for me now, man, they can get picked up any day.
Yeah.
They'd be like, Jaquita, thanks. I'm moving to Minneapolis. And I'll be like, well, dang.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm very much aware that, like, based off of their talent and based off of like how good they are, they could literally go anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it is a privilege to be able
Yeah.
to serve the people that I have the honor of serving. But I'm also like they don't have to be here with me. So whatever time I have with them, I'm gonna make it as meaningful as I possibly can. Now, other people may look at the way that I do it, and because I'm not task oriented, I'm purpose oriented. So I'm not, I allow them to be task oriented. I allow them to focus on their, their to-do list. My job, I am always purpose oriented. So after we go through their task list, I'm flipping the script and saying, okay, what's the next leg of your journey and how can I help you get there?
Yeah.
Like what do you have coming next? And again, my fear as a leader, especially as a transformational leader, is that we will get to a point where there's no more vision,
Mm.
where there's no more growth, there's no more potential, and I won't know what to do next
Yeah.
because I won't have a vision for next. um and so that to me always stresses me out,
Yeah.
um as somebody who is always thinking about what's next, is that we could very well possibly get to a point where I'm like, I got nothing, team.
Yeah. No,
I
that's
got no
real.
juice.
That's real. And that's real. And I want to move to the next one because again, I think these flow very well. Like this fear of communicating. And so okay, so this is I'm gonna try this out. You tell me if this makes sense, okay? Because I had this.
Okay.
I've kind of thought through this principle, I guess, in my own experience of kind of analyzing my communication habits with my team. Both when they become unhealthy or when I can tell that fear is really driving my communication style. And so what I have found, tell me if you have found this or if this resonates with you at all. I have found that like clarity and confidence are the pillars of communication. You want to be clear and you want to be confident in the way you communicate, especially when you're talking about a leadership. Okay, so what I have found is that when the way that it manifests for me is when you are confident but you're not clear, it manifests in like rambling, right? You're confident but you're not clear. You know what I'm saying? So this fear of communication, what I have found when it comes to communication, and just tell me if this resonates with you at all. Like communication is kind of
Mm.
wrapped up in, I think, two main things: your confidence level and your clarity level. Like confidence and clarity are the two of the pillars of communication.
Mm-hmm.
What I have found is that when you're clear but you're not confident, oftentimes it manifests itself as hesitancy. You're hesitant to communicate. Okay.
Ooh. Mm.
When you're confident but not clear, you often ramble in your communication.
I feel attacked immediately.
You can, that's
Immediately, I
fine. You
feel
can feel attacked.
attacked.
I'm attacking all toes. Okay, mine included. And so when either one of those is lacking, you are being driven by fear at some level. It's a matter of like
Ooh.
which one do you need more of? Do you need more confidence? Do you need
Mm.
more clarity? And I think you can tell
Mm.
by literally how your words are coming across. If you keep on moving and moving and moving and never give anybody a chance to ask any questions and you just don't really know what's going on and you keep going in circles, you might not be as clear as you think you are. If you find yourself struggling to say something at all, then you're probably not as confident as you need to be. You know what I'm saying? Does
Yeah.
that resonate?
No, that Ruth Abigail with the PowerPoint today, okay? I wish we had some sound effects. Producer Joy, add some sound effects right there, okay? Because Ruth Abigail came with the heat today, and I love that. And I'm like, as a public speaker, I'm like going back
Mm,
in my mind, and I know that I come off as very confident, right? I also know, as somebody who's been kind of trained in ministry and at divinity school and like the art of preaching, like that I've had to learn to slow myself down
mm,
because I do naturally ramble. because I'm confident in what I'm saying, but I know that like my desire is to be clear, and I know that
Mm,
I'm not always as clear
mm,
as I want to be, you
mm,
know. And so no, that definitely resonates. Especially when you talk about the hesitancy part, because again, I get asked a lot by a lot of young leaders. I just love calling y'all that. I get asked by a lot of young leaders like, you know, Jaquita, can you help me to be more confident? Like, how did you learn how to be confident?
mm,
And I realized that the journey is different because sometimes their hesitancy is driven by that fear of not wanting to be the spotlight or wanting to be at the
mm.
front of the room. And so there's a hesitancy there. And so that just like it's just firing off for me because I totally resonate with that. I feel like there's something missing though, like, you know, like
Well,
like a need to do your research, you know. But but no, I resonate with that.
no,
Like
I
I
mean,
like
no,
that.
this is just strictly from my experience and like
Yeah.
just how I've noticed my own patterns and just when it when I sense that that's happening. So I'll tag it with this, right? So if I'm going to make the argument like the root of that is fear, the reason I think I would say is because when you're clear, sometimes and I have when I'm clear, right? The fear comes in from the potential of being challenged on my clarity, and I may have to confront or defend it. Okay?
Okay, friend. Okay, you no, keep going. Keep going.
Right. So that's that, right? Now when I'm confident, there the fear comes in from like what if I'm wrong and then I'm going to be ashamed.
Ruth Abigail, you came up with this yourself?
From my experience. I did.
Girl,
I
this
mean,
sounds like it's from a book.
it's from my
Y'all better not
life.
steal this. This is Ruth Abigail Gardner original thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Y'all bet you can use it, but quote her.
Amen.
Okay. Matter of fact, tag the podcast. Tag the
Tag the
podcast
podcast.
if this is helping you out and you are going to tell somebody about how they are using their confidence and their clarity. If you're going to use it, tag the podcast. All right, because
Amen.
that's going somewhere. That's
Amen.
going somewhere. No, I love that. I love that. That's so interesting because like I'm reflecting on my own journey
Mhm.
and I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I am very afraid because what did you say, the confident one? Like they're afraid of what?
That you'll be wrong.
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't like to be challenged.
Yeah.
Like one, I don't like debates. I like to
Yeah.
you know, I remember like back in college, y'all, Ruth Abigail loved playing devil's advocate. First of all, we don't advocate for the devil. Okay. Ain't
True
nobody
facts.
advocating for him.
That's fact.
Okay. But, you know, like she loved to be like, well, what if I just throw in this point? Or what if I just say that? And like sometimes, because I'm a very intuitive person and because I am also a kind of spur of the moment person, like I feel very confident in what I'm saying, but a lot of times I just got this thought. This
Yeah.
thought that I'm very confident in, it just came to me.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I am
Right.
not
Right.
yet ready to defend it. I'm
Right.
ready to say it.
Yep.
I'm ready to share it, but I'm not ready to explain it.
Yep.
So don't ask no clarifying questions.
Yep.
I said what
What I
I
said.
said.
Yeah.
Okay. And that, but there is a fear, like there is a fear that someone will be able to come and poke holes
Yeah.
in what I said. And then for me, as a person who kind of values like getting like those sudden revelations or those sudden like, you know, bits of knowledge, you know, that when people come and poke holes in it, it makes me question my gift,
Mm.
or it makes me question like, am I really smart? Like I said it because I thought I was smart. And so when people start asking questions, I'll be like, hold up, back up off it now.
Yeah.
Because you're not just, And sometimes, and I think this was something that like me and Ruth Abigail had to learn in friendship, was that like sometimes when she's asking questions, it is not a personal attack against me, but I would feel like it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Ruth is like, well, what made you think that? Or what made you do that? And I'm like, girl, because I'm me. And because, like and I take it really personal as this is an attack against me.
Mm-hmm.
And then that goes back into that fear of not being enough. Like they are saying that like the reason that, like my confidence has allowed me to step into a lot of rooms and
Mm.
positions and like just kind of like, step in there. But when people start asking questions, it's like, so wait a minute. What I
Yeah.
did wasn't enough. Why are you asking questions?
Mm.
Right? And it
Interesting.
becomes personal.
Yeah.
Like I hate I love y'all. I really dislike I really dislike when people try to poke holes in your logic or when they ask, well, what made you think that? Or why did you do that? Like, I hate why questions. Like,
Mm.
hey, just take the fresh revelation and sit down.
Ha!
All right. Why don't you chew on that?
Why don't you chew on that?
why
Yeah.
don't you why don't you chew on that? But it's honestly like being around people who challenge you, although it is definitely a deeply embedded fear because it's not tied to I might be wrong. It's more so tied to they're gonna realize that I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Or that my way of work might not be sufficient. Like
Yeah.
they're gonna tell me I'm not good enough.
Mm.
Like when they start asking questions, like that's a level of vulnerability
Yes.
that attacks my confidence, but more so attacks my security, my
Mm.
sense of
Mm.
being of feeling secure in my position. But yeah, that's good, Ruth.
That's
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 good.
that's really interesting. I was talking to a one of our donors not too long ago, and one of the things I told him, I said, I don't have like I have regular meetings with people who support us, and they're all great. And I actually really enjoy those meetings. I would not enjoy them nearly as much if I wasn't clear. And I remember when I wasn't clear on what we were doing, why we were doing it, like you said, like all these questions, because the questions challenge your clarity, right? Your confidence,
Mm.
you're confident, but the questions challenge your clarity. And there was a there have been plenty of points where like I was talking about earlier, the fear I had of following a founder who it seemed like her confidence is like she could questions that we didn't have answers to, like her confidence would cover it, right? I didn't
Yeah,
know how to
yeah.
do that. And it's like when people ask me questions I really didn't know the answer, or I didn't have a very good one, I didn't feel like I did, they could tell, right? And so for me, it's like I need to be clear. And I probably spent 2 years really, because I had the opportunity to, in the structure we had, I spent about 2 years really figuring out a lot of things, like really writing a lot of things down, brainstorming on things, asking people questions, doing like getting some language in place, real technical things like for the organization, so that when I had these conversations with people about what we did, I would be I would be ready to answer the questions that I knew were coming, and I could answer them with clarity. And if I didn't have an answer, I was clear enough to appreciate the question and go back and figure it out. I
Mm.
wasn't intimidated by the question because I didn't feel like I was clear. So I was talking to one of my one of our supporters, and I said, "Man, one of the things that I appreciate about our conversations is that you ask me hard questions." And I'm grateful for that, because I have thought enough about stuff
Mhm.
to where it actually, those questions just fuel me. They don't scare me anymore. But I was scared of them when I didn't have any clarity. My confidence, especially like I was saying, out in public, high. I have no problem presenting as confident, presenting as
Mhm.
this is what, like, we are, I know, we're doing great things, really excited about what we're doing, da 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 da, da, all the things. We get a little deeper into it. Well, so how many girls do you have? And I there was a time, because we are the way we work, the numbers that we have, we're not like a boys and girls club where we have hundreds of kids coming in, and a lot of people have that in their minds, and I know that, right? We used to talk about it all the time, and we would say the number, and it would just be less impressive, right, than I would have
Mm-hmm.
preferred. And there was a while where it was like, when I say that, like, do I have to like qualify it or figure things out? And that's where my confidence level goes lower, because my clarity is lower. And so then I start to ramble and try to justify why I'm not telling you 300. So that's a problem. And I had to get to a place where I was clear enough to be able to communicate, hey, we have this many girls, and this is why. And we're not gonna ever have more than this in this area because of this. And I really had to get to that point, not just to have an answer, but to really understand it for myself, right?
Yeah,
And then I have no problems talking about it. So I think kind of analyzing where you might be in your communication. First of all, like, what do you find yourself doing more of? Do you find yourself just being silent and not saying anything, or do you find yourself rambling? And if figuring out, okay, if I'm silent, I might have to get my confidence up. If I'm rambling, I need to get my clarity up.
that's
and
good.
and focus your energy on that level of communication, and understand that if one or the other is low, fear is going to drive something. Like, you're operating out of a space of fear if you don't have those in check.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Listen, friends who are listening, our young leaders, and our fellow middle adults. Shout out to the middle adults
Shout out
because
to
they
the
be
middle
tuning
adults,
in.
man.
Shout out to the
Come
middle
on, man.
adults out here. We just as a note, we all still out here trying to figure it out. But I
Amen.
want everyone, if you just heard that point, put it in the chat, put it in our Instagram chat, put it on our YouTube chat. Which one are you committed to working on for
Hmm.
the rest of 2024? Are you working on clarity or are you working on confidence?
That's good.
Which one is getting to you right now? And we really want to know because we really want to figure out how we can continue to talk about those things and help you guys get to your next level.
That's good.
With Abigail, that was straight fire. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad it read. It's something that hit me not too long ago. I was like, oh man, this is, but it came out of experience. It's just, I recognize, where I am. So, all right. So I think there's one more, and I kind of saved it for last because we were talking about this earlier. Younger people have less of an issue with this, I think, and also there
Mm,
is a reality to it on some level, right? It may be a different reality. Anyway, fear of appearing vulnerable, right?
my
Is
Lord.
and I will say this, with some of the younger leaders I've talked with, that vulnerability factor, less about less concerned about being vulnerable about like personal stuff, more about professional stuff. And so, like, I
Mm,
like don't want to seem incompetent, don't want to seem like I can't do my job,
yeah.
feeling like I need to. And so, the to me, like, I think that I've seen that. So I do think that that's real. And also I think that maybe our generation and older have more of an issue with this. But, what do you think?
So the first thing that came to my mind is that like I think that for our generation, shout out to the millennials who are mostly now middle adults. Like I think that it was kind of like really harped to us like what it means to be professional.
Mm,
Like what a professional looks like, how a professional carries themselves. And I also think that like we were really taught that like you put on the face, like like you put on the face, you put on the suit, and you go out and you be professional. And I also think that we were kind of taught from a lens of don't go out needing something, go out showing that you're the person that can
mm,
figure it out,
uh-huh, uh-huh,
and
uh-huh.
not that you're the person that requires any additional support, any additional whatever, whatever, whatever. But I think we became the figure it out generation. Like we get into a if we get into a situation and we feel like, oh snap, like something might be wrong, I might be in trouble, I da 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 da
Mm,
da, let me figure it out,
mm,
right? Whereas I think that the generation of young leaders that's coming up, like I think that they feel a little bit more empowered to like go out and seek what they need. They
yeah.
are not afraid to go up to people and be like, "Hey,
No,
I need a mentor.
absolutely not.
Hey,
That's right.
I need help with this. Hey, I need to partner for this." Right? They are not afraid of being vulnerable in the workplace. And they don't see it, and I also don't think that they see it as vulnerability.
Mm,
Like the things that I think the ways that we define being vulnerable, especially professionally, I don't think that they would be like they're looking at us like it's not that big of a deal.
yeah.
I overthink things all the time, like literally all the time. And then the younger people I keep around me are like, not that serious, Jaquita. Not that serious. It's not that
Yeah.
deep. It's not that deep. But to me, it is just because of all of the social conventions
Mm,
that I've been taught to hold myself under.
yeah.
And to this idea of especially middle adult and middle management, like feeling like I have to have it all
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I can't break down. Like I can't show weakness and I can't show that like maybe I don't know what I'm doing in an area, or maybe I need more training in an area, or maybe I made a mistake. Lord have mercy.
Mm,
Like that is a great fear of mine, not just in making the mistake, but in somebody else pointing out,
yeah.
you made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
my initial thought is, oh my gosh, can I hide that?
Yeah.
Can somebody please cover that for me? Like don't let that get out that I'm out here making mistakes. Whereas I think that they have gained some value you know from just watching us, and they are like, it's okay to make a mistake.
Yeah.
They're also like, this job ain't gonna be my last one.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I ain't gotta stay here.
Yep.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I just thought about Everybody Hates Chris. I ain't gotta stay here. My husband got two jobs. Like in their mind, they're like on to the next.
Yeah.
Like if y'all trip or if I don't get what I need here, like, and I think that if we want organizations to be sustainable, we are going to have to be able to cater to the needs to their express vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like, if they put on a staff satisfaction survey, I don't feel supported by my superiors. Y'all better figure out some ways to add levels of support
Yep.
because they have more options than we do. Like they will, because their mindset is different
Yeah. Because their
and they're
mindset is different.
less. As a young leader, you are at a point where you can pick up and go.
Yeah.
None of the people who work for me, yeah, they're not even from South Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah.
All three of my assistant directors, none of them are from the area. If at any point they'd be like, I'm
Yeah.
going home.
It's nothing holding them there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing holding them there.
Yeah.
Whereas middle adults, we've now established families.
Yes.
We got
Yeah.
kids that go to the
Got
school
more to
down the
lose.
street.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving my church home, amen. Or I'm not trying to, like we're more rooted and grounded where we are, whereas they're still weighing their options.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to supply things that will cater to the needs of people who truly don't have to be there.
Yeah. No, man, and that's a whole different that's a whole different way of operating. So I think you make a really good point about the difference of this generation and how they think about the younger generation and how they think. And I I I totally agree. I think that if you want, we have to be willing to cater to their vulnerability. I mean,
Mhm.
I had a conversation with some of my team members the other day, talking about ways that I could support them better, right? And that is, I and in turn, their vulnerability brings out my vulnerability, and so I try to meet it. I try to meet their vulnerability with mine and being honest and real about where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are, what I'm going to work on, all those things.
Mm.
One of the things that I've uh, that they have expressed is like they're not used to having bosses that do that. It's very weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
For that to happen, which I totally get. I've shared with them my experience. I've been in this industry for 15 years. My experience in with the leaders that I've had, I've always felt comfortable being honest because it was that kind of mentor coaching kind of
Mm-hmm.
relationship for most of the people that I've worked with. But I can understand that that's not a lot of people's experience. And so I think that often I don't know that there's a lot of fear for me that happens when it comes to being vulnerable because I it professionally, personally is a whole different ballgame. But but professionally, I think the vulnerability factor, I kind of grew into that through my
Mm-hmm.
experience. I do think that on the other side of it, there is a fear of being able to respond to somebody else's vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have a fear around that, where it's like, can I will I meet their expectation? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Will I be able to do what it is that I said I would do? Will I be able, and because I don't always, because there's, you have different people, different expectations, and it's like, okay, I know what I'm able to do. Will that be enough? And if
Mm-hmm.
it's not, well, what am I going to do now? Right? And so just there's that tension that I think we live in, that I live in, as a leader, of responding to the vulnerability of team members, with my own, and also uh, by actually acting on what is being expressed, which I think is important.
Um, I think that it's been really interesting when it comes to me being vulnerable. Like like I don't think it's not hard for me to be vulnerable with my team because I think that that's part of like my transformational leadership style. It's hey, like here's what I learned and here's what I don't want you to have to go through. Here's where I'm at. And here's like to the point where I think I've actually had to be the opposite, like where I've had to like be more intentional about modeling like a level of we're gonna push through, we're gonna get through. And I remember, you want to know what changed my leadership style was because I'm always, I'm usually pretty honest with my team. And one day I came in, this is gonna sound worse than it is. It's gonna sound so much worse than it is. But I just got to a point where I was just tired, like
Mm-hmm.
exhausted, like after coming through like a bunch of just like pivoting from situation to situation to situation, like just being really really exhausted. And I remember I came in one day and I made the decision. I was like, I'm gonna be chipper. Like I'm gonna come in and be like, good morning y'all, hey y'all, and I'm gonna do that instead of like, who y'all, how y'all doing, all right, we gonna make it, don't we gonna be all
Oh
right. Like
Lord.
I came in and then I remember like one of my assistant directors, I heard them telling another assistant director, "Ooh, she in a good mood today, y'all." And I was like,
That's
I
hilarious.
was like, "Oh," like that's when it really hit me that like
Interesting.
I thought I was commiserating, like, "Oh yeah, we all tired, y'all, man, we tired, but we gonna get through." But really, I was setting the
Mm,
tone.
mm.
And I had to move from being kind of, the thermometer to being the
The
thermostat.
thermostat, right?
Like to being the one who set the temperature for how our team was going to show up. Now I'm still honest in that. Like when it's time for us to take a break, I'm very much like, all right, everybody, we're taking a break.
Yeah.
Like we're tired, which is
Yeah.
where we are now.
Yeah.
We've successfully navigated a school year.
Yep.
All right, we're in the summer. And let me tell you something.
Yep.
Don't come in here talking about. Don't come to that one-on-one meeting with 20 items. Don't come to that one-on-one meeting being like, all right, I got 20 things to discuss. No, you do not. It's the summer. And so just being really really intentional about making sure that I'm setting the mode for them. But where it becomes difficult to be vulnerable is with my own, like the people that I report
Yeah. Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
And I think I didn't realize how difficult it was until, again, I had staff turnover. I have now had like 3 different supervisors that I report
Mm,
to. And in the beginning, I was
mm,
just like, when I found the comfort of being able to go in that office and sit on that couch and like really just say what was on my mind and my heart and say, man, I'm really struggling with this. But and like being able to unload. And after I unloaded, being
mm,
like, now this is what I'm gonna do about it.
yeah.
Like this is how I'm gonna overcome this. And not having that, I
Mm,
have found to be really,
yeah.
really stressful. Like it is now stressful to not be able to be vulnerable
Yeah.
because I don't feel that level of comfort anymore. Like
Mm,
I go and sit on that couch and I'm like, all right, well, these are the things that I'm working on, and
yeah.
these are the
Mm,
task lists that we competed.
interesting.
Like I feel the need to go in there
Yeah.
and make my team look good.
Yeah.
Like and I don't feel
Yeah. Yeah.
the space to go in and say, "Hey, this is what I'm really struggling with." Because struggling does not feel like a privilege that I have anymore. Like
Interesting.
nah, we're not struggling. Nah, we on top. We're
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Everything's good. Everything's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And it's not anyone's fault. It's just in the midst of transition, in the midst of like kind of like some power dynamics that again is nobody's fault. It's like me having to be mindful like that's how I'm choosing to show up.
Yeah.
Not that that's how I have to show up, but that's how I'm choosing to
Mm,
show up. And so like, when we talk about being vulnerable and how we can approach that maybe a little bit differently. Like, I think, there has to be some space, especially as middle adults, where, somebody has made you feel comfortable to be vulnerable because sometimes you really can. Vulnerability is risky.
very.
You can
That's
go in
the
there, you can go in that
yeah,
office and be like,
definition.
man, I'm just really afraid because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And they be like, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like vulnerability is risky. So yes, there is some responsibility on whoever you're reporting to create that open, safe space. But there's also a responsibility of you to kind of be open to doing it as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be willing to take that chance. And for me, I think it's necessary
Yeah.
because I was better at my job when I was able to be
Mm,
vulnerable.
mm, mm. Yeah, that's good.
I shouldn't say I was better. I'll say I was more intentional about creating change and about my own responsibility
Right.
to carry my team. I was given more leverage to do that. Ruth Abigail, would you like a break?
No, it's no point. It's gonna be what it is. Uh Sorry guys, but you 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 make a great point. I like, but I think you're right. I think that vulnerability is I think you have to have the freedom to do that in order to be at your best, because otherwise you're really just
Mm,
you're putting on a false front, and you're not going to be able to do that very long. Like that's not sustainable. And yeah, I think that's real. And
yeah.
also, it is harder to be vulnerable with people that are holding you accountable. It's just harder,
Mm.
But I think there's also
It depends on the atmosphere set
it depends exactly
because it was
by the
not
said
hard.
person, right?
It was not hard. I used to go down that hall with my stuff like I am. I can't wait.
Correct.
I
But
cannot wait.
it has to be set by the person who's holding the
Yeah,
accountability. Like
for
that
sure.
that culture has to be very present. And if it's
Hmm.
not, yeah, you're not gonna feel good about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really good. I have really enjoyed this conversation.
it's been a great talk, man. Two middle adults out here. I felt like we were both on each other's therapy couches today.
I agree.
Like, I felt like, but this is good.
Uh-huh.
And hopefully, if you guys found it helpful, want to put this plug in, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't hold all of this to yourself. Again, if you are listening, these are some hard fought lessons. Like, and these are
Absolutely.
some things that we're still in the middle of learning. So these lessons didn't come cheap. All right. You know, we're not giving you the cheap stuff today.
Nah, like for
We
real.
gave you the stuff that we and
No.
we could have gave you a little bit more, okay,
Yeah.
but we need to keep our jobs.
Amen. No, no, it didn't come cheap. And I think, before we go, I have just two things if you want that I think are weapons. If I'll say weapons against fear. If that are if fear is something that professionally is specifically, but also just in general, if you feel like fear is driving decisions you're making, either as a new leader or a young leader or whatever, I think two things that will help to fight against it is transparency. Be transparent.
Hmm.
You got to kill fear with the truth, because most of fear
Yeah.
is based in a lie. So you have to kill it with the truth, right? So be transparent. And then the second thing is communicate. When I say that, communicate often. That could be to yourself. That could also be verbally or written, but get it out of your head. Get it out
Hmm.
of your head, because that's where it grows. Fear grows up here. As soon as you put it out there, it shrinks. So get it out of
That's
your head.
good.
Be transparent and communicate often, either verbally or written. If you communicate to another person, that's fine too. But you don't have to. Some things you just want to keep to yourself, and that's okay. But get it out of your head, and it'll help you move forward. Otherwise, it just stays there and it grows, and you feel stuck. And now you don't want to have to allow fear to stick around for longer than it needs to, so that you don't have to go through certain things like we've had to go through. Use this as an opportunity to kill it in its infancy. Yeah,
For sure.
for sure. Well, I think we're done. I think we're done. I like Quita said, please, if this was helpful,
Like, share, subscribe.
like, share, subscribe, and let us know. You know what I'm saying? Let us know what you're unlearning about fear as a young leader, as a growing leader. Just let us know. Drop a comment in any place there's a comment. Comment box is everywhere now, so drop it somewhere and let us know. We really want to hear your thoughts on this one, because I think this one's pretty important to us. All right, so Quita, let's get out of here.
All right, y'all.
Bet. Let's keep
Peace.
unlearning together so that we can experience more freedom. See y'all next week.